time management and question practice is absolutely crucial. Now, what worked for me may not work for you in preparation for level 1, right? What I think you need to do is over the course of your study period. Now, it depends how long you have a study period for. So let's say you intend to study for the December exam in the beginning of the summer of 2017. So let's say you will have July, August, September, October, and November. 6 months to prepare for the CFA level 1 exam in December. So if you have 6 months, I would encourage everyone to do between 20 and 50 questions per day, each and every day. The Fitch portal has an enormous number of very, very challenging questions. If you do 20 to 50 questions per day over a 6-month period, you will have done an enormous amount of questions and have seen an enormous amount of variations on similar questions. Remember, this is all about practicing questions. So what I would say is I do not think it's optimal to say, okay, today I'm going to do 20 questions on ethics. Tomorrow I'm going to do 20 questions on portfolio management. I think it's best that if you let the test bank randomly select questions across the topics tested so that each and every time you sit down and do questions, you could face all of the topics that are tested. That is more similar to what is going to happen on the exam day. Now, that's what's worked for me. That doesn't necessarily mean it will work for you as well. But the key point is, regardless of what you designate your study period, I think a 6-month study period is optimal because then you have plenty of time each day and then you don't have to cram at the end. But I understand some people do like to cram. But whatever period you elect to do, you need to do lots and lots of questions. What worked for me is spreading out those questions across topics. That may work for you, or you may feel better served by concentrating on specific topic areas. Clearly, you want to work on areas that you feel like you need to improve. At level 1, where lots of candidates feel like they need to improve, it depends on their undergraduate degrees, is on the accounting section, okay? As we'll see a little later, the accounting section is a very large component of level 1. Okay, so if you studied accounting in undergrad or graduate school, you may feel comfortable with the topic. However, a lot of people that have not studied accounting find this area particularly challenging. So of course, when you're studying and doing practice questions, I would focus a little more on the accounting. Similarly, if you feel comfortable on the quantitative section because you're very good with numbers and you have a mathematical background, you're good at memorizing formulas, maybe you could underweight that in your study area. The key point is it's up to you to create the plan. We are here to help you. We are here to provide very challenging questions, and if you get stuck, we're available to help answer those questions. But it's really up to you to start thinking about what my study period is going to be, or the length of the study period, and how many questions per day I'm going to challenge. On the exam day, as I mentioned earlier, remember, watch your time, okay? You have 3 hours in the morning, you have 3 hours in the afternoon. Each session is 120 multiple choice questions. Again, do the math. It says that you have about 90 seconds per question. Use your time efficiently. Question practice is obviously crucial, but please bear the following in mind. Use the right allocation of time, as I've mentioned. Always read the requirement first. I would say when I was first studying for the exam, this is where I made my most amount of mistakes in the early part of my study program. I would read the question too quickly, right? Because the CFA Institute absolutely knows that you're going to feel some pressure on exam day. So sometimes you need to look for critical words in the exam questions, such as not, or always, or never, right? So make sure that you are looking at the exam question very carefully. And when you select your answer, go back and make sure that it's answered the question that was asked. Okay, because sometimes people go too quick and don't say, don't look at some of the critical words that will be in the question. I would go through the questions, I'd have a pencil in my hand, and I would circle the key words like least, most, average, things like that. Key words in the question that will help you get to the right answer. Obviously, do not get bogged down, right? Each question is worth the same. Okay, this is a typical question, right? If you're not a bond person, right? I'm a bond person. I've been in the bond market my whole career, and questions like this, I feel, could be challenging, particularly under a stress situation, right? But the key point to this is if you know how to use your TI, if you know how to use your HP 12C, this question gets much, much easier. If we go back, this function here on your calculator, interest rate conversions, will allow you to answer this question simply, quickly, and efficiently, and allow you to move on to more challenging questions. Okay? Even if you don't understand the theory of what they're trying to do here, you could follow and memorize the steps that are required on your calculator to solve this. This is a very typical question that you would find at level 1, perhaps maybe either in the quantitative section or in the bond section, right? They're giving you a 6-year bond, right? They want you, basically, if I was reading the question, I would circle 6-year, I would circle semi, 4% semi is key here. The price may or may not be key. The fact that it matures at par should always be apparent, but maybe it doesn't. And then they're saying the yield to maturity quoted on a semi-annual basis is 340. All this information is given to you. And they're asking you a question that you as a trader have been simply asked to convert this to from semi-annual bond basis to a monthly periodicity. Okay, so your TI calculator may help. Why may it be interesting to calculate it to a monthly periodicity? Well, there may be some mortgage-backed securities, right, because they pay down monthly, that are quoted with monthly conventions rather than semi-annual bond conventions. Now, here is another type of question that you will get. This will absolutely be in the accounting section. For those of you in the United States, you'll be familiar with GAAP, U.S. generally accepted accounting standards. In Europe and parts of Asia, they use international financial reporting standards. There is a giant project going on between U.S. accountants and international accountants to see convergence between both sets of standards. However, as of today, there is some discrepancy, or there's some latitude and choices on how to account for certain types of cash flows on the statement of cash flows between U.S. GAAP and international reporting statements. So when you look at a question like this, right, they are essentially expecting you to understand the statement of cash flows. Okay, it's something that in Fitch Learning we will spend a lot of time in the accounting section understanding the statement of cash flows. And you will understand that in the statement of cash flows you have 3 choices on where to put cash inflows and outflows on this statement. It could be in operating cash flows, it could be in financing cash flows, and it could be in investing cash flows. And the choices of where to assign these types of cash flows between US GAAP and international reporting standards can and are different, at least for the moment. You will be expected to know how to treat it under GAAP and how to treat it under international financial reporting standard. A very, very typical accounting question that you may face for level 1. Okay, similar question again on the cash flow statement. This is going to be a little more detailed. They're asking you under US GAAP. US GAAP. So they're expecting you to know both US GAAP and IFRS. Now for level 1, there are not a huge number of areas where they differ. They differ mostly, at least for our purposes on level 1, on the cash flow statement. So they're asking us from cash flows from a financing standpoint. So we have to know, is dividends paid a financing cash flow? Well, if you don't know, you would say, well, it's an operating or maybe financing. So we would have to think about that. Common stock issued, well, that absolutely sounds like a financing cash flow. Equipment purchase, probably not. That sounds like an investment cash flow. Bonds issued, that absolutely sounds like a financing cash flow. So answering this question correctly will really come down to your ability to understand how dividends paid affects the cash flow statement. Okay, very, very typical. Cash flow statement, again, is something that we spend a lot of time on at Fitch Learning.